Does that sound like a bunch of coincidences to you, Mr. Garrison?
No.
Not for one moment.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today we're looking at some of the wildest alternate theories centered around the fates of public figures.
Wagner has always said he believes Natalie tried to climb into a dinghy, fell into the water, and accidentally drowned.
Don Drummond. In the mid-20th century, he gained prominence for his contributions to ska music. However, Don Drummond is remembered for more than his trombone skills today. In 1965, his girlfriend and fellow artist, Anita Mifsud, was found slain. The following year, Drummond was found guilty for her murder and imprisoned. He died 4 years later behind bars, and the cause was attributed to natural causes. Soon, other theories began to circulate. Some suggested that the Jamaican government was involved, and that they planned his death in order to target the music scene in Kingston. Another posited an even darker idea, that Drummond had been taken out to avenge Mifsud following her death. Though there's no evidence to support either, both are still believed decades after his passing. Tom Thompson. During his career, he made a name for himself as one of Canada's most prolific artists. However, Tom Thompson's legacy goes far beyond the landscapes he painted. The circumstances surrounding his 1917 demise are still questioned today. The official cause is said to be accidental drowning, but theorists weren't so convinced. When his body was eventually found, there were small cranial injuries and fishing wire wrapped around his ankles. This has led some to believe that foul play was at hand, and that he was intentionally drowned by an unknown assailant. Others are convinced that he took his own life. The lack of a concrete answer has resulted in a century-old mystery that doesn't seem to be getting solved anytime soon. Vince Foster. Since the 1990s, this has remained one of the most pervasive conspiracy theories among politicians and civilians alike.
There is the reoccurring rumor about you and Vince Foster. What was your relationship with him?
Oh, he was one of my dearest friends, Barbara.
Vince Foster made a name for himself as both a lawyer and White House counsel at the beginning of Bill Clinton's presidency. Despite his success, he struggled with depression and took his own life via gunshot in 1993. Though several investigations confirmed the cause, alternate explanations were created and spread throughout Washington, D.C. and beyond. Those on the right claimed that Foster had been taken out by the Clintons, and that he'd been repositioned and given a gun post-mortem to make it appear self-inflicted. Decades later, during his first presidential campaign, Donald Trump fanned the flames of the theory, causing it to spread even further.
But critics are saying Mr. Trump was trying to suggest something else when he told the Post, quote, "Whether it's Whitewater or whether it's Vince or whether it's Benghazi, it's always a mess with Hillary."
And Heche. TikTok has provided the perfect breeding ground for conspiracy theories to thrive. Those surrounding the deaths of celebrities are no exception, with Anne Heche being the prime example.
That actress Anne Heche is in grave condition following that fiery crash last week.
The actress tragically passed away in 2022 following a horrific car crash that left her with substantial injuries. Though her demise seemed cut and dry, internet users had differing views on what happened. One pervasive hypothesis claimed that she was targeted for appearing in movies centered around human trafficking or faux pandemics, and that she was essentially taken out for knowing too much.
Actress Anne Heche has died. She was 53, and in the course of a long career appeared in nearly 100 movies and television shows.
A video reportedly showing her struggling to escape a gurney following the accident has been used to corroborate it. Though all signs point to her death being unintentional, it's still questioned today. Grace Kelly. In 1982, the world lost a princess and generational talent in one horrific moment. That year, Grace Kelly suffered a sudden injury while driving, causing her to lose control and careen off a mountain.
The official version said that Princess Grace had a stroke behind the wheel and drove off the road.
Though this has been attributed to a brain hemorrhage, there are several other ideas. She reportedly had a disdain for driving, leading some to wonder why she was behind the wheel. Some theories claimed she'd been killed by the mob or a cult known as the Order of the Solar Temple, in order to stop her from exposing either organization. Another suggested that her daughter Stephanie had been driving, which she has denied outright.
The police and the palace are insisting, in the face of strong rumors, that it was not 17-year-old Stephanie, who has no driving license.
Her fate is still speculated and has become a pervasive mystery in pop culture. Buddy Holly. The day the music died is one of the most recognized tragedies in entertainment history.
When it finally sunk in to my head that he and Richie and the Big Bopper and the young pilot Roger were dead, it was just like, from that point on, it was just like somebody turning the lights out.
Yet despite the 1959 plane crash that took Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, and Buddy Holly being well known, some are convinced that foul play was at hand. A pistol that was allegedly owned by Holly was found near the wreck. This led to a theory that the musician had fired it intentionally or not, causing the aircraft to go down. This caused other rumors to spread, including that there was a bullet hole in the pilot's seat and 2 empty chambers in the weapon. They were so persistent that the Big Bopper's son had his body exhumed and tested.
There's no way that he could have survived. And there's no indication of a gunshot wound. So I was able to answer both of them.
Despite nothing of note being found, the postulation hasn't ended. Elliott Smith. At the turn of the 21st century, he made a name for himself as a singer-songwriter. Even with all of his success, Elliott Smith struggled with mental illness. When he passed away in 2003, it was attributed to 2 self-inflicted stab wounds to the chest. However, the autopsy report didn't rule out homicide. A friend noted his substance use and implied that those he'd been partaking with may have turned on him. Others suspected his girlfriend at the time, who'd reportedly been the one to pull the knife out. The leaked report showed no signs of hesitation, along with what appeared to be defensive wounds on his hands. These seemingly small details have created theories that are still questioned over 20 years after his death. Donny Hathaway. His legacy is defined both by his musical prowess and his death.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very soulful Mr. Donny Hathaway.
It all began on January 13, 1979, when Donny Hathaway began acting paranoid during a studio session. He claimed to be targeted and that his mind had been connected to a machine that would steal his voice. He was sent back to his hotel, and just hours later, he was found dead on the pavement outside. It was determined that he jumped out of his window, but other theories spread. One asserted that he'd been in debt to the mob. Another posited that the government had him assassinated after he realized their mind control plan. Though it was most likely the tragic final act of a tortured soul, the rumors haven't died down yet.
Hathaway leaves behind a wife and 2 children.
William Desmond Taylor. Throughout the 1910s, he achieved fame as a silent film director. In 1922, William Desmond Taylor's life and career were suddenly cut short when his corpse was found in his home.
On the morning of February 2nd, 1922, actor turned silent film director William Desmond Taylor was found on the floor of his bungalow with a bullet hole in his back, murdered by an unknown assailant.
The cause was initially determined to be a stomach hemorrhage, but turning over the body later on revealed a gunshot wound in his back. Several people were brought forward as suspects, from former employees and lovers to the stars he employed. In 1964, a former actress claimed to be his killer on her deathbed, but a lack of evidence rendered her confession moot. Theories about his death are still circulated today, with details such as a man being seen leaving his apartment and the studio destroying evidence becoming fodder for each one.
People are still talking about and still wondering how he was murdered and who did it. My gosh, he's become a legend. He will go on as a legend as long as there's a Hollywood.
Thelma Todd. Although she was one of the most prolific actors of the silent film era, most of her legacy today lies in her demise.
They called her the Hot Toddy, and in the early 1930s, Thelma Todd was one of the hottest movie stars around.
In 1935, Thelma Todd was found dead in her convertible. At the time, her death was found to be caused by carbon monoxide poisoning. Strange details, such as her reportedly being extorted and injuries being found on her autopsy, allowed theorists to run wild. One theory put forth mobster Charles Lucky Luciano as a suspect, asserting that he had her killed.
Thelma said no over my dead body. Luciano is supposed to have said, well, that can be arranged.
Another placed the blame on her boyfriend at the time, Roland West, who was allegedly angry at her at the time. Though the supposed perpetrator may never be found, it seems that there was more to the case than investigators claimed. Bob Saget. Whether it was behind the camera or live on stage, he delighted audiences throughout his career.
There's a lot of love for Saget.
Yeah, what is that?
No, I mean, it's a good thing.
Bob Saget had been in the midst of a successful comedy tour when news of his death broke in 2022. An autopsy determined the cause had been from blunt force trauma to the head, most likely from an unintentional fall. Alternate theories were created almost immediately, with one of the biggest being that he'd actually succumbed to complications from the COVID-19 vaccine he'd received a month prior to his demise.
Bob Saget's death, while tragic, was really suspicious because of the injuries that he sustained.
It's clear the official narrative doesn't tell the whole story.
Another claimed that he'd been attacked rather than fell, and cited the fractures around his eyes as proof. Medical providers have corroborated the original report, but that hasn't done much to quell the conspiracies. Aaliyah. By the time the new millennium came around, she was poised to become one of its biggest stars. Aaliyah's trajectory was cut short in 2001 when the plane she was on crashed during takeoff. To many, it was a horrific accident, but others were certain it was planned. It's theorized that Aaliyah was allegedly taken out by P. Diddy so as not to damage Beyoncé's blossoming solo career. Fellow singer Mary J. Blige added fuel to these flames by pointing out that the deceased star had shady people surrounding her and felt that she herself was the next in line to experience an untimely death.
We all, as artists, young artists that don't know and that are not aware, we end up drinking and partying and no one tells us the truth. And that's the environment I believe that she was in. And that's why I feel like that could have just been me.
Though it's been nearly a quarter of a century since Aaliyah passed, the conspiracy theories are still alive and well. David Carradine. After a lengthy career in both television and film, the world was left dismayed at the news of his sudden passing in 2009.
A grim end for an actor whose kung fu heyday propelled him to stardom. David Carradine was found dead at this luxury Bangkok hotel early on Thursday morning.
Action star David Carradine traveled to Bangkok to work on the movie Stretch, only to be found dead in his hotel room days after arriving. He'd been discovered in the closet with rope wrapped around certain body parts, with the cause being deemed accidental asphyxiation, with a potential sexual motivation. His family denied this being a possibility, leading to other hypotheses being created.
The investigation continues, and unsubstantiated reports surfacing that the actor's hands were bound behind his back.
Instead, they claimed that he'd been targeted by an underground society of kung fu artists in order to stop him from investigating them. Whether it's damage control or a reliable theory, it threw a wrench into the authorities' evaluation. Virginia Rappe. Her death and the murky details surrounding it led to one of Hollywood's first scandals.
It was a celebration that became a celebration of horror because a young girl lost her life. A movie star was implicated, and the studios had to hold their breath.
In the 1920s, Virginia Rappe was on the cusp of a prosperous career. That is, until she passed from internal injuries just days after allegedly being assaulted by Fatty Arbuckle, one of the biggest stars of the era. He underwent 3 trials before being acquitted, leaving the true cause a mystery. Some at the time speculated it was due to her having a venereal disease or an infection in her urinary tract.
She had a prior history of cystitis, which is a medical term for inflammation of the bladder, infection of the bladder. In the days before antibiotics, this was common.
Another theory claimed her bladder ruptured after an ectopic pregnancy, while another blamed a poorly executed attempt to terminate one. The truth may never be known, but they've gone on to damage 2 classic stars' reputations post-mortem. Anna Nicole Smith. In 2007, the nation was left shocked when the beloved reality star was found unresponsive in her Florida hotel room.
Anna Nicole Smith, who died in Florida late today at the age of 39.
At the time, Anna Nicole Smith's death was determined to have been caused by an accidental overdose. Some are convinced that the circumstances weren't incidental, but rather planned. The book, The Killing of Anna Nicole Smith, explored this in depth, including the possibility that she and her son had been murdered. Others have even accused the autopsy of being faked and pointed out surveillance footage that reportedly captured someone sneaking into her room. Her partner, Howard K. Stern, was charged with conspiring to give controlled substances to her, but he was ultimately acquitted.
I was vindicated, Anna was vindicated, who she was as a person was vindicated.
prosecution's false portrayal of her was exposed.
However, that hasn't done much to quell those who believe she was targeted. River Phoenix. In 1993, one of the most promising young actors of the time had his life cut short. River Phoenix died at just 23, which was attributed to an accidental overdose.
Fans have been gathering outside the nightclub where the 23-year-old actor collapsed and died on early Sunday.
Fans and theorists alike believed the cause was more sinister. Some assumed the cult Children of God had slain him, as he and his family were members previously. Johnny Depp has also been pointed out as a potential suspect, as he owned the Viper Rooms at the time. In a bizarre twist, one claimed that the actor had faked his own death in an attempt to flee the spotlight, and is now living as conspiracy theorist Mark Dice. While they're all a stretch, they're still believed to this day.
He was such a beautiful boy, and he definitely left, way too young. Too young to die, for sure.
Jean Harlow. At just 26 years old, this blonde bombshell lost her life for reasons still not entirely known.
In 1937, while filming Saratoga with Clark Gable, 26-year-old Jean took ill. It had been apparent to many of her co-workers that Jean was not in good health. What nobody realized was that Jean Harlow was slowly dying.
Up until 1937, Jean Harlow had the world in her hand. That year, she was afflicted with an illness that caused her to develop an ashy complexion, gain weight, and become increasingly exhausted. It escalated quickly, and on June 7th, she passed away. The cause was attributed to a side effect of kidney failure. Over the next few years, rumors circulated, from her mother refusing to get her medical help to it being caused by a childhood case of scarlet fever.
Christian Scientist Jean's mother didn't believe in doctors. However, there is still a difference of opinion as to whether or not her mother would allow Jean to seek medical care.
One of the more shocking potential explanations is that years of bleaching her hair with ammonia and other harsh chemicals did untold damage to her health. James Dean. Though his filmography is limited, his legacy has persevered.
You're right. I am bad. I knew that for a long time.
I didn't mean that, Cal. I spoke in anger.
No. It's true.
Some of James Dean's lasting power comes from his sensationalized death in 1955 when he crashed his car. You may think the cause is cut and dry, but the conspiracy theories disagree. The wildest is that Jean was allegedly cursed by Marilyn Monroe, who portrayed a witch on TV. The two had reportedly been linked, but after he denied it, it's believed she retaliated with dark magic. The supernatural hypotheses don't end there. Some are adamant that the car he perished in was cursed.
All of a sudden, there's stories that spectators touched part of the car and they cut their fingers or their hands. The car being trailered on a truck and slipping off the truck and killing the truck driver, and people breaking a hip and falling down after they've touched the car.
Like other young stars with sudden deaths, it was even claimed that he had staged the accident. Each one, no matter how bizarre, has only added to the mythicism surrounding him. Jayne Mansfield. On the surface, she appeared to be a gorgeous yet talented ingenue.
Jayne Mansfield was the archetypal 1950s Hollywood dumb blonde. But behind the pin-up image was a complex and intelligent woman.
Yet Jayne Mansfield had a dark side that may have had a hand in her death. The official account of her demise is that she, her partner, her driver, and her children had been driving when they suddenly crashed into a tractor trailer. All 3 adults perished. While it was seen as a tragic accident to many, others believed there may have been darker forces at play. She was involved with the Church of Satan and its founder, Anton LaVey, who supposedly cursed her boyfriend to die in a car crash. As such, it's thought that she may have become an unintentional victim of his dark magic that fateful day in 1967.
Hollywood star, the buxom and beautiful Jayne Mansfield, is dead. She was killed instantly when the car she was riding in collided with a truck a few miles from New Orleans early this morning.
The Notorious B.I.G. His impressive catalog released through the 1990s cemented his legacy as one of the best rappers ever.
I'm blowing up like you thought I would. Call a crib, same number, same hood. It's all good.
Though his music is still beloved, his sudden death in 1997 is still at the forefront of culture. Countless conspiracy theories about the reason behind his murder have been created, with one of the most pervasive being that it was in response to his rival Tupac Shakur being shot in 1996. Others claimed that he'd been taken out by members of the Los Angeles Police Department, while another suggested that P. Diddy may have been involved in orchestrating.
Kading says he can finally prove what many of Biggie's fans suspected. Their beloved Notorious B.I.G. was murdered in retaliation to the killing of Tupac.
One theory even posited the idea that he wasn't dead at all and was instead staged. Almost 20 years after his passing, none have been confirmed or denied. Juice WRLD.
This morning, so many questions as to how a seemingly healthy 21-year-old could die so unexpectedly.
A leading figure in both emo and SoundCloud rap, Juice WRLD passed away from a substance overdose on December 8, 2019. Many young fans couldn't process the shocking news, and as a result, many conspiracy theories began appearing on TikTok and various social media sites. They point to various lyrics in his songs, including "We Ain't Making It Past 21" and "Really Feel Like John Lennon." Juice WRLD died at 21 on December 8th, the same date John Lennon died 39 years earlier. And back in 2017, the rapper posted a tweet that read, quote, "My goal is to get overly famous, shine for a couple of years, then fake my death." This tweet gave false hope to millions of fans.
And at this point, we have no idea of exactly what killed Juice WRLD. Autopsy results are still pending.
Jeffrey Epstein.
I really wanted him to take up for what he did and to be put in jail or prison.
Some people become posthumous celebrities, and Jeffrey Epstein is certainly one of them. The controversial financier made headlines in the early 2000s, but he became a household name in 2019 following his suspicious demise in prison. Epstein was imprisoned on charges of sex trafficking and supposedly took his own life on August 10th. However, many elements of his death didn't add up, with Attorney General William Barr calling it, quote, "a perfect storm of screw-ups." Some say screw-ups, others say curious coincidences. To this day, many believe that Epstein was murdered, and his death covered up, supposedly because he had compromising information on many rich and powerful figures.
The case has threatened to implicate prominent names from the worlds of business and politics.
Brian Jones.
It's 50 years since the rock music legend Brian Jones died.
This musician from Gloucestershire, England, created and named a little band called the Rolling Stones. You may have heard of them. Jones initially played a number of instruments in the world-famous band, but he developed issues related to drugs and alcohol and was eventually fired in 1969. Very soon after, Jones died in his swimming pool, with the coroner stating that both his liver and heart were in terrible condition. The report attributed his death to, quote, misadventure. However, many people, including Jones's own children, believe that he was murdered, specifically by a contractor named Frank Thorogood, who allegedly killed Jones over some money that he felt he was owed.
One of the early appearances of the Stones back in the 60s when life perhaps seemed a lot more simple to the poor chap, and obviously his end maybe summed up a lot of the excesses and the problems that fame brings.
Robert Johnson.
I went to the crossroads, fell down on my knees.
Described by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as the first ever rock star, Robert Johnson is a blues musician who influenced the likes of Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton, and Robert Plant. However, he didn't have much success in his lifetime and died in 1938 of unknown causes. His death was poorly investigated at the time, but modern researchers believe that he passed from complications of congenital syphilis. However, there is a prevailing urban legend that Johnson was poisoned by a jealous husband. The tale goes that Johnson was flirting with the man's wife at a country dance, prompting him to poison Johnson's bottle of liquor. It's certainly a good story, but a mere story it may be.
Ain't nobody seem to know me. Everybody pass me by.
Johnny Stompanato.
You want me to kill him?
No. With Cohen dead, his empire would only attract others of his kind.
A famous gangster, Johnny Stompanato served as the main enforcer of LA crime boss Mickey Cohen. He found further infamy dating Lana Turner, an icon of the golden age of Hollywood. Stompanato was famously abusive towards Turner, and on April 4th, 1958, he was in the midst of attacking her when he was stabbed by Turner's daughter, Cheryl Crane. Crane was not charged, as the homicide was deemed justifiable. To this day, some believe that it was Turner herself who killed Stompanato, but that Crane took the blame, either to save her mother's career or protect her from the law. Despite the theory prevailing through the decades, Crane has continuously and vehemently denied it.
Tommy went to live on a big farm where he's got lots of room to run and play with all the other Chicago gangsters.
Jimi Hendrix.
The Jimi Hendrix experience is over. The acid rock musician died today in a London hospital, apparently from an overdose of drugs.
One of the many celebrities who have died at the age of 27, Jimi Hendrix died on September 18, 1970. He was found unresponsive by his girlfriend, Monica Danneman, in her London apartment, with the coroner reporting that he had asphyxiated on his own vomit. This finding was seemingly validated by Danneman, who claims that Hendrix took 9 prescription sleeping pills before dying. However, people have noticed a number of inconsistencies related to his death and Danneman's conflicting statements. For example, she claims that she rode in the ambulance with Hendrix while the paramedics have consistently denied this. People don't know exactly what happened, but they aren't buying the official OD'd in his sleep explanation.
He should have been a millionaire. It's not known whether he saved his money, but it is known that today, Jimi Hendrix is dead.
Brittany Murphy.
She was an actress with big potential. Then Brittany Murphy died young.
When young people die of natural causes, many questions are often raised. That's certainly the case with Brittany Murphy, who passed on December 20th, 2009 at just 32. The actress and singer was found collapsed in her bathroom and rushed to Cedars-Sinai, where she went into cardiac arrest and died. The coroner's office ruled that her death was caused by pneumonia exacerbated by anemia and prescription drug intake. Some people weren't buying it, and just 5 months later, Murphy's husband, Simon Monjack, was also found dead in the home, also of anemia and pneumonia. People blame toxic mold as the culprit, others aren't so sure. Murphy's father even alleges that his daughter was deliberately poisoned, citing an alleged toxicology report that was not made public.
Do you believe your daughter was murdered?
I absolutely do.
Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Mozart! Forgive your assassin! I confess I killed you!
The thing with many old deaths is that the medical knowledge was relatively primitive and fatal illnesses were much more common, even among the young. As such, no one really knows why Mozart suddenly took ill and died at just 35. Dozens, if not hundreds of explanations have been put forth, each one as opaque and shoulder-shrugging as the last. Naturally, some people don't buy the traditional narrative and believe that the composer was secretly murdered. Perhaps the most famous culprit is Antonio Salieri, who was so widely blamed for Mozart's death that it severely affected his mental health. This theory is bolstered by the 1830 play Mozart and Salieri, in which the latter murders Mozart out of jealousy, which also inspired Peter Schaeffer's Amadeus.
The man you accuse yourself of killing. You've heard that? Is it true?
Bob Crane.
10 years ago, when he was slain, Bob Crane was a popular Hollywood television star. Today, his murder is still unsolved and is one of Hollywood's major mysteries.
Known for playing the titular Robert Hogan on Hogan's Heroes, actor Bob Crane was bludgeoned to death in his Scottsdale apartment on June 29, 1978. Suspicion immediately fell on Crane's friend John Henry Carpenter, as blood was found in his rental car after visiting Crane. Carpenter was arrested but ultimately acquitted due to a lack of strong evidence. DNA tests were inconclusive, and Carpenter maintained his innocence until he died in 1998. Crane's son Robert has insinuated that Crane's widow, Patty Olson, may be involved, as she was the only one who benefited from his will. Authorities deny this. If not Carpenter and if not Olson, then who?
Is it a stretch to say this may be like the most infamous unsolved murder in the Valley in the last 40 or 50 years?
Bruce Lee.
On tonight's mystery, Bruce Lee's surviving brother has questions about what really happened.
An enormous influence in both martial arts and Hong Kong cinema, Bruce Lee tragically died July 20th, 1973 at just 32, a curiously young age for someone of such health and athleticism. Naturally, this has led to numerous conspiracy theories. The official story is that Lee died of a cerebral edema, which was possibly exacerbated by painkillers, heat stroke, or hyponatremia, a condition that describes low sodium levels in the blood. Others believe that he succumbed to a curse that was put on the Lee family, or that he was murdered by the triads after he failed to pay protection money. Some don't even believe that he died. According to them, he faked his death to work undercover for the Hong Kong police.
Yeah, I reckon that's true.
Yeah, I reckon that's true, because if you were going to send someone undercover to investigate the triads, you'd probably want the world's most famous Chinese film star.
John Lennon. The world stopped and grieved on the night of December 8, 1980, when it learned that John Lennon had died.
Lennon was shot and killed at about 11 o'clock last night outside his apartment building.
After returning home following a recording session, Lennon was infamously shot in the back by Mark David Chapman. It's a pretty clear-cut and readily accepted story. Regardless, it has resulted in a few conspiracy theories. Some believe that Chapman was a patsy, used and brainwashed by the CIA, which wished to assassinate Lennon due to his outspoken left-wing ideals.
Chapman started talking about a little person inside of him and a big person inside of him. The big person has been winning the battle up to now, but tonight the little person won.
Others think Chapman is totally innocent, including author Salvador Astruccia, who argues that forensic evidence absolves Chapman of the crime. In any case, Lennon won't be the only Beatle on this list.
The statements he made, the music he made, it's going around the world.
Sam Cooke. Often called the King of Soul, Sam Cooke was popular in the late 50s and early 60s. But on December 11, 1964, Cooke was shot and killed by a motel manager.
Sam Cooke, one of the most talented singers and music producers of his generation, is shot in a shabby motel.
Allegedly, Cooke took a woman named Elisa Boyer to the motel and assaulted her. She then escaped, and Cooke violently confronted the motel manager, who shot Cooke in self-defense. Cooke's family and friends reject this version of events, however, and have put forth various theories.
He was not a violent guy. I never saw him get angry.
Some believe that Cooke was violently attacked by several people, with singer Etta James stating that his body had suffered horrific, unexplained injuries. Others claimed that Cooke's manager, Alan Klein, might have even had him killed. So far, neither of these theories have been corroborated.
This was really troubling to the black community. Did he really make a silly mistake, wrong place, the wrong time in a seedy motel? Was he set up? I don't know.
Bobby Fuller. This rock singer found top 10 success with a cover of the Crickets' I Fought the Law. The single was released in late 1965.
They were four country boys from El Paso, but everyone knew it was Bobby's band. He was the star.
On the following July 18th, Fuller was found dead inside a parked car, and the medical examiner tentatively blamed gasoline vapors for his death. Fuller's death is officially labeled a fatal accident. However, various far-reaching conspiracy theories have been put forward by people who don't buy it. Fuller's bandmate Jim Reese believed that Charles Manson had something to do with it, despite being in prison at the time, and others suspect that Fuller was killed due to personal connections with the mafia. It's likely that we'll never know.
We want to know who did it and why.
Avril Lavigne. Let's just clarify that Avril Lavigne is not dead. The 2000s pop icon is alive and thriving, but not according to some. A few fans are adamant that the Avril Lavigne we see today is actually a woman named Melissa Vandella.
The conspiracy goes like this, that Avril died and was replaced by an Avril lookalike.
According to the conspiracy, the real Lavigne passed away after the release of her debut album Let Go, but the record company didn't want to stop the gravy train, so she was replaced with a body double to fool the public and continue her musical legacy. The main evidence surrounding the conspiracy is Lavigne's changing physical appearance, supposed subliminal messages in later songs, and the word Melissa written on her hand in a photo shoot. As expected, Lavigne has continuously denied the conspiracy.
Yeah, some people think that I'm not the real me, which is so weird. Like, why would they even think that?
Tupac Shakur. On September 7th, 1996, hip-hop icon Tupac Shakur was shot in a Las Vegas drive-by. He died 6 days later.
Unrolled the window, arm came out, opened fire, and just went rat-a-tat-tat.
2 Crips gang members were named in an affidavit, including Dwayne Davis, who later said that his nephew Orlando Anderson was the shooter. However, countless conspiracy theories exist in regards to Tupac's death and even survival. Some believe that the shooting was ordered by either music executive Suge Knight or the Notorious B.I.G.
things eventually went south in the middle of the decade when the two rappers got embroiled in an epic East Coast-West Coast rap rivalry.
Others believe that Tupac is actually alive and faked his death and moved to Cuba. And as is often the case with conspiracy theories, some believe that the CIA is involved. Ultimately, Davis was arrested and indicted for Shakur's murder in 2023, as he's the only person who was in the car used in the drive-by that hasn't passed away.
There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Suge Knight knew immediately who was behind the murder of Tupac Shakur.
Steve Jobs. The famous co-founder and CEO of Apple passed away on October 5, 2011 from pancreatic cancer. He was only 56 years old.
This is a man who really stood for American exceptionalism, was a man who created the Mac, the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, all of that.
Nearly 8 years after his death, a photo began spreading around the internet that had everyone convinced of his continued survival. The photo shows a balding, gray-haired man sitting in a plastic chair outside, and the man admittedly bears a striking resemblance to the late Jobs. The sneaky photo was reportedly taken in Egypt, leading many to believe, whether seriously or not, that Jobs is alive and well. Unfortunately, this is simply a case of one man looking a lot like another.
You can do multi-finger gestures on it, and boy, have we patented it.
Michael Jackson. The world lost music's biggest icon on June 25, 2009, when the king of pop died of cardiac arrest in his LA mansion.
Both the Los Angeles Times and CBS News are both now reporting that Michael Jackson has died.
His personal physician, Conrad Murray, was convicted of involuntary manslaughter, as he had incorrectly administered various drugs to help Jackson sleep. Murray spent 2 years in prison, but many people, including Jackson's own daughter, believe that there is more to the story. Paris Jackson claims that her father's death was, quote, a setup orchestrated by people, quote, out to get him.
And at some point he was like, they're gonna kill me one day.
However, she's declined to explain who the people are. Jackson's old advisor, Leonard Rowe, told Radar Online that Jackson was assassinated for his music catalog, worth approximately $1 billion. Paul McCartney. Sir Paul McCartney is one of the 2 surviving members of the Beatles, but according to one prominent urban legend that sprung up in the 1960s, McCartney actually died long before his late bandmates.
So this started some rumor that because he was barefooted, he's dead.
Proponents claimed that McCartney perished in a car crash shortly after the album release of Revolver. Not wanting to upset the public, McCartney was quickly replaced with a lookalike. Fans scouring the Beatles' work have also found so-called subliminal messages in their songs and album covers.
The myth suggests the Beatles planted clues to Paul's death in their songs and album art to break the news gently.
The Beatles' press office was quite vocal in its defense, calling the legend, quote, a load of old rubbish, and referring to its believers as, quote, nuts. The rumor was put to bed after a very much alive McCartney was featured in Life magazine in November 1969.
It was a little bit strange because people did start looking at me like, yeah.
Bob Marley.
Singer Bob Marley, his reggae music known far beyond its roots in Jamaica, died in a Miami hospital today.
The death of this reggae legend was hard to accept. In July 1977, Marley was diagnosed with an aggressive skin cancer under his toenail, which within 3 years spread to the rest of his body, leading to his death at just 36. Fans could not accept the explanation, and the conspiracy led to where they seemingly always lead, the CIA.
The prevailing view remains that Marley favors Manley, making the singer public enemy number 1 to the conservative right, which includes the USA and the CIA.
The story goes that a CIA agent named Bill Oxley infected Marley with cancer through a pair of Converse sneakers. He reportedly did so because the CIA didn't want Marley starting a revolution. Despite the story not making a ton of sense, it nevertheless received traction, and in 2018 was shared by the likes of T.I. and Busta Rhymes.
The CIA is never implicated in the assassination attempt, nor connected with any plot to cause the cancer that kills him.
Andy Kaufman.
Almost 30 years after his death, a brand new Andy is alive rumor is raging through the internet.
In life, this quirky comedian often enjoyed pulling fast ones on, well, everybody. So when Andy Kaufman permanently disappeared in 1984, supposedly due to lung cancer, the world refused to believe the official account of his death. Andy's last girlfriend and his own brother seemed to have conflicting stories. But whatever you believe about Kaufman's death, no one can deny that a decades-long hoax would have been so Andy.
We're going to pause here for station identification and get the hoses out here.
He allegedly even said that if he were to fake his death, he would return 20 years later, which would have been in 2004. Who knows? Maybe he's just enjoying some R&R in Albuquerque.
There are also fans who say if he's living in Albuquerque, he should be left alone.
JonBen&eacute. What happened to this American child beauty queen shocked the nation in 1996 and continues to fuel debate and conspiracy.
Of all of the evidence left behind, that ransom note is the most baffling.
The case remains unsolved, which certainly does not help. And while some conspiracies are more grounded and based in reality, others are a little more out there, and let's face it, a little disrespectful. One theory claims that Ramsey didn't actually die and grew up to become Katy Perry.
An unseen man named Dave Johnson makes a string of claims linking the pop star with JonBen&e.
This theory was given further prominence in 2017 when Billy Eichner confronted Perry about it at the VMAs for a Billy on the Street segment. It's a bizarre theory, and a quick Google search shows that the timelines don't even add up, as Perry was twice Ramsey's age at the time of her death.
Blink twice if you're really JonBen&e Ramsey.
Wait, no, that is not real.
Jimmy Hoffa.
Well, if it became a question of power as against money, certainly I would select power.
While the average person may not know what this man actually did for a living, many have thought his body was buried under Giants Stadium. As the leader of the Teamsters Union, Jimmy Hoffa was known to anger a few people, and according to legend, the mob took care of the problem. Who exactly? Well, it's become quite popular to claim responsibility for the hit.
Following a tip from a dying man, police are looking at this property in Roseville, Michigan, at the driveway to be specific, under which may lie the solution to a 37-year-old national mystery.
It's an awfully trendy deathbed confession among mobsters. And if you believe notorious hitman Richard Kuklinski, he's the man responsible for Hoffa's earthly departure. Can we just all agree that Jimmy Hoffa could only have been killed once?
All trace of Hoffa's gun. His jewelry is dust.
Jim Morrison.
Touch me, babe. Can't you see that I am not afraid?
If you were around in the late 60s and had the opportunity to hang with the lead singer of The Doors, he probably seemed more like a regular dude than somewhat of a mythical unicorn figure.
If you're popular, go with it. And if you go out of favor, just keep doing it.
But a shady death always leads to conspiracy theories, especially when the person in question supposedly died in a Parisian bathtub. Although the cause of death was stated as heart failure, no autopsy was ever performed, causing some to think that Jim faked his own death, and others to claim that he overdosed in the bathroom of a nightclub. Well, the 70s were definitely a bit hazy for some, and conspiracy theorists continue to search for clarity.
He's dead. Sorry. I'm sorry.
George Reeves.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman. Yes, it's Superman.
Here's what we know for sure. TV's Superman died from a gunshot to the head in June 1959, which ended his reign as the Man of Steel. But from there, things get extremely blurry, in part thanks to the extreme inebriation of the guests at his house that night. While they claimed to have heard one gunshot, 3 bullets had been fired from the gun. Police believed he took his own life, but some have theorized that MGM Vice President Eddie Mannix or his wife Toni Mannix were involved, since Reeves and Toni had had an affair.
Remember, George Reeves had pretty much an open house. There were a lot of people in there all the time, and friends of friends.
Others suggest that Reeves' fiancée, Leonore Lemon, shot him accidentally. In the end, of course, it is all speculation.
That's the $64,000 question. Who knows who pressured who to do what to cover this up?
Princess Diana.
A French minister is being quoted this by the Reuters news agency now.
that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died in this accident.
Months before the Princess of Wales was killed in a 1997 car crash along with boyfriend Dodi Fayed, she allegedly wrote a telling letter, worried that someone might tamper with her brakes. Well, we all know what happened, as Princess Diana's death inadvertently ushered in the age of internet speculation. One theory, according to claims by Dodi's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, is that the MI6 and CIA were involved, with the potential motive for murder being that Diana may have been pregnant with Dodi's child, and that the two were going to get engaged.
She was saying to the world, yes, I found someone, I'm very happy with them. But that's a completely different stage from we're going to get engaged, we're going to be married.
The paparazzi photographer who was following Diana before her death, James Andanson, took his own life shortly after conspiracy theories arose, just one of many oddities about a seemingly straightforward matter.
The only problem with Mohammed Fayed's theory of the royal family and MI6 being behind the murder of Princess Diana is that it doesn't have a shred of credible evidence to support it.
Kurt Cobain.
I'm so happy, 'cause today I found my friends in my head.
As the lead singer of Nirvana and husband to Courtney Love, Kurt Cobain earned plenty of headlines in the early 90s, and deservedly so. But it was Cobain's 1994 death that sparked a larger discussion about his personal life.
It was a totally empty room, no furniture, just Kurt's body lying on the floor. There was a shotgun lying on his chest.
At the time, his decision to take his own life wasn't a complete shock, at least considering the media portrayal of Cobain. But as new details emerge, theories continue to arise in search of the truth.
But the world just took Courtney's word for it.
For example, take the 2015 documentary Soaked in Bleach, which focused primarily on the details of his death. Did someone assist in Cobain's death? And was it possible for Kurt to even pull the trigger given his physical state at the time? We may never know.
I cannot think of a case in which I have had someone inject himself with a large amount of heroin and then proceed to kill himself. It just doesn't make sense.
Natalie Wood.
People sometimes go very big, but that's abnormal.
From child stardom to massive success as an adult, this late icon never failed to impress. But with fame comes insecurities, and Natalie Wood had a lifelong fear of drowning, which makes her 1981 death even more suspicious.
Natalie hated the water, hated it, had a great fear of it, didn't go into her own swimming pool at home.
After a night out with husband Robert Wagner and actor Christopher Walken, the actress inexplicably wound up in the waters off Santa Catalina Island, dead at the age of 43. With reportedly plenty of drinking and arguing going on that night, one could be led to believe that Natalie fell off the boat, but many think her husband may have forcibly removed her from the situation.
The tension was building throughout the whole weekend of Robert Wagner being jealous of Christopher Walken.
The captain seems to know what happened, but it's likely only Wagner and Walken know the truth. Well, allegedly, that is.
It's very difficult for all of us, and every day is a little better. Sometimes you go forward, and sometimes you slip back.
Elvis Presley.
We can't go on together. A suspicious mind.
In August 1977, the king of rock and roll was found dead in his bathroom. Today, he continues to live on through his music, although some take this more literally. In fact, some theorize that he faked his death and that he's actually still alive, as over the years, there have been countless claimed Elvis sightings.
Is Elvis Presley alive?
Absolutely, I would testify it in a court of law.
A few people even claim he was an alien and just went home. We may never actually know what went down at Graceland, but Elvis did have a few health issues, most notably an enlarged heart. And as you can imagine, prescription drug abuse likely didn't help the old ticker. Even so, the king lives on through conspiracy theories and all those special people who understand what's really going on.
Elvis, I want to thank you very much for being with us. We noticed that you've settled in Bismarck, North Dakota. Could you tell us, Elvis, what's the biggest difference between Bismarck and Memphis?
Probably the biggest difference, man, I never died in Bismarck.
Marilyn Monroe.
Happy birthday to you.
Just a few months after her famous birthday salute to JFK, an American icon consumed a lethal amount of barbiturates and called it quits. At least, that's one possibility. On the surface, it seems that Marilyn Monroe was severely depressed and took her own life.
She was a victim of a homicide, that she was murdered.
However, some think her overdose was accidental, while others believe she may have actually been murdered that evening in Brentwood due to the fact that she ran with an interesting crowd of politicians, mobsters, and some real powerful individuals.
She was very nervous about her phone being bugged and asked me if I knew anyone that could look at it.
Was it Norma Jean herself or someone with a motive and opportunity? Although no evidence of foul play was found in the investigation, the theories surrounding her death continue.
What is the business of the CIA, which was involved, or the FBI, which was involved?
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. John F. Kennedy.
Through the years, they never changed their story. Now all of a sudden they're doing it because it's for the public record? I can't buy that.
Well, here's what we do know. Marilyn Monroe did not kill JFK. And maybe, just maybe, neither did Lee Harvey Oswald.
He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot.
In 1963, the extremely public death of John F. Kennedy altered the course of history and subsequently inspired decades upon decades of conspiracy theories.
And then all of a sudden, the day turns to chaos. It's unbelievable.
But someone pulled the trigger on not only the gun, but also on a massive cover-up. Given all the documentaries and books written about the ordeal, one could go mad just thinking about all the possibilities.
How many shots did you say you heard?
4 to 6.
That's impossible. You heard echoes. Echoes.
Was it the CIA, the Soviets, the New Orleans contingent? The list of possibilities is endless. But when you look at the facts, is it really possible that Lee Harvey Oswald, a lone gunman, executed the perfect crime? Or were there larger forces at work?
There was no conspiracy at all. The conspiracy was in the mind of Lee Oswald.
Did any of these theories convince you? Let us know in the comments.